For earned value analysis, it compares the performance measurement baseline to the actual schedule and cost performance. EVM integrates the scope baseline with the cost and schedule baselines to form the performance measurement baseline. Now you want to be very careful with this acronym EVM because you have a second one called EMV, and you'll find that over in risk, and that's expected monetary value. So EVM is earned value management. EMV is expected monetary value. Plan value, PV, is the authorized budget assigned to the scheduled work. The authorized budget planned for the work to be accomplished for an activity or WBS component, not including management reserves. Remember, management reserves are always controlled by management. Earned value, EV, is the measure of work performed expressed in terms of the budget authorized for that work. It needs to be related to the performance measurement baseline. It cannot be greater than the authorized plan value budget for a component. It's often used to calculate the percentage complete of a project. Actual cost, AC, the realized costs incurred for the work performed on an activity during a specific time period. Total costs incurred in accomplishing the work that the earned value measured. The actual cost has no upper limit. Whatever is spent to achieve the earned value will be measured. Now, when it says here that the actual cost will have no upper limit, what they're really saying is that whatever is spent, if I planned $5,000 for this activity, but it cost me $10,000, I can't hide that extra $5,000 someplace else. I've got to show that I planned $5,000, but it cost me $10,000. So is that going to mess my calculations up? Yes, it's going to show that my project is really over in that area. But that's what it should be showing because that's the truth. Variance analysis. You have explanation, cause, impact, corrective actions. For costs, which is cost variance equals earned value minus actual costs. Schedule, which is schedule variance equals earned value minus planned value. And variance at completion, VAC, would be BAC, which is budget at completion minus estimate at completion. And then for SPI, you're going to be looking at earned value divided by planned value. For CPI, you're going to be looking at earned value divided by actual costs. And those formulas you need to know, and it's not uncommon for you to have somewhere between 5 to 15 different formula type of calculations. You might not have to calculate them all, but you do have to interpret many of them and be able to tell them what is happening on the project. So let's take a sample project and work through this. And so let's say we have a project with a budget of $3,600 and a planned value of $2,550 and an actual cost of $2,280 and an earned value of $2,400. So we do a schedule variance. It's earned value minus planned value. It's the amount the project is ahead or behind schedule. So you've got schedule variance, earned value minus planned value. So we have $2,400 minus $2,550, and that's going to give me a negative $150. And so those parentheses around that is going to show that's a negative. So if it's a negative, I know that we are behind schedule. If it's a positive, I know that we're on schedule. Since this is a negative, we know we're behind schedule. Negative schedule variance, the project is behind schedule. A positive schedule variance, the project is ahead of schedule. You want to have a positive schedule variance if at all possible. Positive is good, negative is bad. Say it with me. Positive is good, negative is bad. One more time. Positive is good, negative is bad. All right, for cost variance, earned value minus actual costs, and it's the amount the project is over or under budget. Negative cost variance means the project is spending more than it should. A positive cost variance means you're earning more than planned for the cost used. Now that second bullet point always sounds real clumsy to me. What it means, if you've got positive cost variances, you're coming in under budget. That's all it means. You're coming in under budget. If it's positive, it's under budget. If it's negative, I'm coming in over budget. So you want to do your best to have a positive cost variance. So positive is good, negative is bad. All right, so here's your formula. This is earned value minus actual cost. So we take 2,400 minus the 2,280. So I came in with $120 positive. So what do I know about my budget? I'm coming in under budget right now. All right, let's look at SPI. This is Schedule Performance Index. It's EV divided by planned value. It represents the schedule efficiency of work performed. So an SPI that's greater than 1, the project has completed more work than expected. An SPI with less than 1, the project's completed less work than expected. So you want to have an SPI that's greater than 1 if at all possible. So above 1 is good, below 1 is bad. Say it out loud. Above 1 is good, below 1 is bad. One more time. Above 1 is good, below 1 is bad. Okay. So here's your formula. Earned value divided by planned value. So I had 2,400 divided by 2,550. So it gave me a 0.941. I'm 6% behind schedule is what that is telling me. 6% behind schedule. Under 1 is bad, above 1 is good. The CPI, this is earned value divided by actual cost. This represents the cost efficiency of work performed. So if a CPI is greater than 1, the project is earning more than it's spending. If the CPI is less than 1, the project is earning less than it's spending. So above 1, I'm coming in under budget. Below 1, I'm coming in over budget. So positive is good, negative is bad, but above 1 is good, below 1 is bad. So that will help you in being able to interpret those. So you want to have a CPI that's greater than 1 if at all possible. So here's your formula. Earned value divided by actual cost. So that's 2,400 divided by 2,280. And so you're going to have a 1.053. So I'm coming in 5% under budget. 5% under budget. All right, so how would you interpret a CPI of 1.03 and an SPI of 0.97? Above 1 is good, below 1 is bad. So I'm coming in under budget, but what about my SPI? I'm behind schedule. So I'm 3% under budget and 3% behind schedule. One of the things they will do on the test from time to time is they'll give you like 15 different projects, and they'll say, based on this information, which project should you cut? And so I only have room for 5 here, but based on this information, which project would you cut? And the answer should be what? D is the one that's performing the worst. So that would be the project I would cut. Another thing they will show you is with CPI and SPI, they'll give you 2 projects that are just like this, and they'll say which project is either performing the best or which project is performing the worst. Now it's going to make a difference on what they're asking you on which one you have to pick. Now what this is called critical ratio. All you would do is multiply your CPI times your SPI. Now, obviously, the projects are going to be so close that they're less than 0.001% difference. So the one that's higher or closer to 1 is the one that's performing better. The one that's lower at 0.001%, that's going to be the one performing the worst. So you want to make sure you catch the question. Which project's performing the best or which one's performing the worst? So with this, I want you to take your calculator and calculate which project is performing the worst. So grab your calculator and do that. CPI times SPI, it's called critical ratio. Okay, you have your answer. So you don't have to guess, it's CPI times SPI. Project A is worse. Now, if we had said which project was performing the best, you would have been answering B. So that's the only trick that they really pull on you with this type of thing. Trend analysis. It examines project performance over time to determine if performance is improving or deteriorating. Charts. 3 parameters of planned value, earned value, and actual cost can be monitored and reported on both a period-by-period basis, typically weekly or monthly, and on a cumulative basis. All right, one of the things they do is throw charts at you. So we're going to expose you to some of these. So you have to have an anchor to help you with your chart. So here is how is the project performing? So what's your anchor? Plan value is going to be your anchor on these type of charts. Plan value is where the project should be if everything is perfect. So find your anchor, which is plan value, and then look at what's happening to cost and look at what's happening to your schedule. So cost is very high, going across to quite a bit of money. So you're coming in over budget. And then notice what's happening to schedule. It's underneath that one line, that PV line, and so that means you're behind schedule. So how do you interpret this? This is over budget and behind schedule. All right, so let's show you another chart. Use your anchor, plan value. So how would you interpret this? Since you're under the plan value, I'm behind schedule, but I'm coming in under budget too, way under budget right now. So I'm behind schedule and under budget. Now it could be that you have a big item you have not purchased yet that will be purchased soon. All right, how would you interpret this particular slide? You have one line. This slide is perfect. Plan value, actual cost, and earned value. This is exactly the way it should look if everything on the project is running perfect. And then one more, find plan value, what's happening with your schedule or earned value, and what's happening with your cost. So here I'm ahead of schedule, but I'm under budget. This is one we don't get to see very often in the real world either. So I'm ahead of schedule and under budget. All right, you also get into forecasting. If it becomes obvious that the BAC is no longer viable, the project manager should consider the forecasted EAC, that's estimate at completion. It involves making projections of conditions and events in the project's future based on current performance information and other knowledge available at the time of the forecast. The work performance information covers the project's past performance and any information that could impact the project in the future. So this is where you see your EAC formulas. There are 4 EAC formulas. One is called the manual bottom-up. The second EAC formula is based on budgeted rate. Budgeted is going to be your key word there. Your third EAC formula is going to be based on CPI, and your fourth EAC formula is going to be based on CPI and SPI. So the first one, which is called the manual bottom-up EAC, this is very common. It requires the project team and project manager to estimate remaining work. It's problematic because it interrupts the project work in progress. So what you're going to do here with this is that you're looking at a situation to where you're going to be bleeding money, and that's what I want you to write down for this. It's bleeding money. And so in your project where this thing is bleeding money, that's going to make a huge difference, because as you see this thing's not just having a little hiccup, but it's bleeding money really, really bad. So the formula will go with the project which is really underperforming. You're going to see huge losses on here that your budget is not going to be able to handle. And so that's why you're going to have to use the EAC money. Underneath each of your problems on the PMP test, you'll have information. Some of the information you'll use, some of the information you won't use. And in this case, it's going to be EAC money you're going to be using on that test question. Now this is EAC based on budgeted rate. So I want you to circle the word budgeted there because that word will be in the test question. It accepts the actual project performance to date and predicts that all future project performance, or ETC, will be accomplished on budget. So this, I want you to write down bad to good, but this isn't horrible to good. This is a hiccup. You know it's not bad, or you would not have had a situation to where it could still be on budget. So you've had a little hiccup in this particular project, but from this point on, it's going to be on budget. So the key word there is budget. The project experienced a small issue or problem, but all future work will be within budget. And the key word is the word budget. So let's look at this formula. So you have EAC, which equals AC plus BAC minus earned value. So let's take our formula and now plug our numbers in. So it's 2280 was the actual cost plus 3600 minus earned value of 2400, which gave me 2280 plus the 1200, or 3480. And so that's my EAC formula, or that's my EAC conclusion at budgeted rate. So I've had a hiccup, but from this point on, I'm going to still be able to be on budget. This EAC is based on CPI. It assumes the project performance can be expected to continue in the future. If the project continues along at its present level of performance to cost, the EAC will be the final project cost. So BAC divided by CPI. Now what they do here is they sometimes will give you the information and you have to calculate the CPI before you can calculate this formula. So this is what we're calling status quo. Whatever it did in the past, it's going to do in the future. And so that's what you're looking for. So in other words, it's performing exactly the same way. All right, so your formula is BAC divided by CPI. So we take our 3600, which was our BAC, divided by 1.05, and that gave me 3428.57. Now here's the thing that you'll notice. Most of the time on the PMP test, they'll do 2 decimals out. But occasionally you won't be able to find your answer because they've done 3 decimals. Now I want you to see this because it's close, but it's not so close that you can just eyeball it and pick it out. So in this case, we did 3600 divided by 1.053. It came out to 3418.80. So you got a totally different number by using 3 decimals. Now, many times people say, well, I'll use 3 decimals all the time. No, because 2 decimals is probably the best answer that's there and the most correct answer. But if you're running across, you can't figure it out, look back up and do it in 3 decimals, and that's probably the answer. So most of them are 2 decimals, but occasionally they will be 3. So I just want you to know that as you go into this. You also have your last EAC, which is going to include both SPI and CPI. It assumes a negative cost performance to date and a requirement to meet a firm schedule. So in this case, you're going to find something to where this is a firm schedule. It's a regulatory date, a due date. You're going to be penalized. You're going to be fined if you don't hit it. There'll be something like that in the narrative. Now, obviously, this is the most complicated to calculate. So let's break it apart here for you. All right, so firm schedule is the key. You're going to see a regulatory date or a due date that if missed, a fine or some type of compensation is going to have to be given because you missed that date. So let's take our first part of this is AC plus BAC minus earned value divided by CPI times SPI. All right, so let's get our numbers plugged in here. So BAC minus earned value, 3600 minus 2400 gave me 1200. Let's get my CPI times SPI, 1.05 to 0.94, that gave me 0.987. And then I can take my 1200 divided by the 0.987, that gave me 1215. Now if I round it up to 0.99 like many people do, that would give me 121212. And then I would have my 2280, which is my actual cost, plus my 1215.81, that could be one answer. Or if I do the second answer where I rounded it up, that would be my answer. So you can see that the answers are close, but of course the other 2 answers are going to be right in that same area as well. So that's how you calculate the last one. All right, your ETC is EAC minus actual cost. So estimate to completion can be figured by subtracting the actual cost of work performed from the estimate at completion. This is the remaining budget required to complete the project if work continues at the present rate of performance. Now, many people will stop and say, well, what's my remaining budget? That's not what it says here. It says it's the remaining budget you need. The difference between EAC and ETC, EAC is how much my total project will cost if work and performance stay the same. An ETC tells you how much more money you need if work and performance stay the same. So you've got to be able to interpret both of those. All right, so let's take your ETC. So it's going to be EAC minus actual cost. So we just took one of the other EAC calculations there. So it's 3495.81 minus 2280, which gave me 1215.81. Or I could take the 3492.12 like we had in the last one, and that would give me 1212.12. So that's your ETC calculation. How much more money you need to complete the project if work and performance stay the same. You also are going to be exposed to what is called TCPI, To Complete Performance Index. Many people misinterpret this. Many of the people on internet and on YouTube don't interpret this correctly for the PMP. So to calculate the calculated projection of cost performance that must be achieved on the remaining work to meet a specified management goal such as the BAC or EAC. If the CPI falls below the baseline, the level of performance must be evaluated to decide if the BAC is obtainable or if an EAC is necessary. So, To Complete Performance Index. You have two formulas for To Complete Performance Index. One is going to be based on the BAC, the other is based on the EAC. Now here's what I would do on the test. I would use the BAC by default unless the characteristic in that scenario is that this project's losing huge amounts of money. Then I would go to EAC. But most of the time, the BAC is the best answer that's going to be on there. If it's just having a few bumps here or there, but if it's bleeding money, go to the EAC, okay? Now let me show you how this works. So take your TCPI, and so let's take the project with a BAC of 4,500, an earned value of 4,250, an actual cost of 4,350, and a planned value of 4,125. All right, so let's calculate it here. So BAC minus earned value is 4,500 minus 4,250, which is a positive 200. BAC minus actual cost is 4,500 minus 4,350, which is a positive 150. All right, so now we're going to take the 250 and divide it by the 150, and that's going to give us a 1.67. Now, when people see this, they interpret it a lot of different ways, but that means we have to have a 1.67 to maintain our level of cost and bringing this project in on budget. They're only going to do it on the budget side. They won't do it on the schedule side. So from this point to the end, we have to have a 1.67 in order, which is really overperforming, in order to meet the project budget. Now, people say, well, I don't understand that. If you doubt it on your test, let me show you in the left-hand corner here. If you doubt it, just do the calculation of the CPI. So in doing the calculation of the CPI, it showed that I'm 3% over budget. So that means from this point to the end, we have to overperform at a 1.67 in order to hit the budget and come in on the budget as set up for this project. So if you question what it's saying, just turn around and do a CPI on it. And if the CPI is going to be under 1, then your TCPI is always going to be above 1. It's a teeter-totter back and forth. So if your performance on your project is down, meaning under 1, your TCPI has to be above 1 on your test, okay? If the performance of your project is over 1, then you're going to have a TCPI that's under 1 because it doesn't have to perform as great. It's always the opposite of what's happening on the project. The other thing that they will throw at you will be an earned value table, and this one's very limited because that's all I could get on the screen, but they could give you one that's 15 lines, 15 columns, okay? Then they start asking you questions about the project. Of course, you're trying to do this in a minute and 5 seconds. So here's what you're wanting to do for this, okay? You've got to have your anchor for this, and your anchor for this is going to be on CPI and SPI. So CPI and SPI, I can look at that and know what's happening to the project instantly, and then I can work my way out on anything else. So week 1 of CPI and SPI is 1.00, 1.00. It's perfect, okay? All right, if I drop down to week 4, I'm 0.75 on CPI, I'm 0.86 on SPI. So I'm behind schedule, I'm over budget 25%. All right, so let's drop down to week number 9. 0.97, 0.97. I'm within 3%. I'm still over budget, but it's 3%. I'm still behind schedule, but it's 3%. Then look at week 11. 0.94 on CPI and 1.00 SPI. So I brought it in on time, but I'm 6% over budget. Then if you look over here under actual cost, you'll see $17,000 rather than the budget of $16,000. So I spent an extra $1,000. So you've got to be able to interpret it, because they can ask you a lot of different things, but you don't have to go in every direction. Go to your anchor, in this case CPI and SPI, those are my anchors, and then work your way out to answer the questions and you'll be fine. Then you have your variance at completion, which is BAC minus EAC. BAC is going to be your budget. Your EAC, you're going to have to determine which formula they're asking you. Most of the time, they're going to give you all the characteristics. You have to calculate an EAC to then calculate the VAC. All right, let's look at some review. Tom has a budget of $450,000 and has been working on a project which has been underperforming since its beginning. He anticipates the project will perform the same in the future. Which EAC formula will be used? Did you catch the key word? He's been working on a project. Notice what it says. He anticipates the project will perform the same in the future. This is your status quo. That's all they gave you, but that's your status quo formula. So it's going to be BAC divided by CPI. All right, this is one that very similar to what was called in. This does not follow any of the normal formulas, but I want to see whether or not you can calculate this. Tom has a budget of $450,000 for a 12-week project. In week 6, he discovered the project has already spent $300,000 of its total project budget. What is the CPI? Now, you don't have any of the other information. This is all you know. So you're going to have to come up with an average of what it and turn it into the CPI. So what answer would you come up with for this? Here's what you would do. The potential, if nothing has changed, the potential, I've got $300,000 that I've already spent of week 6. I must have to assume that I'll spend the same amount in the second 6 weeks. Now we can argue that to death, but it doesn't matter because you don't know anything other than what's said here, okay? But so in real projects, I know it might not be that way, but you're having to figure it out for this here. So I spent $300,000 for the first 6 weeks. I might spend $300,000 for the second 6 weeks. So then I start trying to look at 225 is where it should have been, divided by the 300,000 where it is right now. That gave me a 0.75. So I know that I'm 25% over budget. That's the best answer I could come up with for something like this. This type of question comes up on the test very consistently right now. So I wanted to make sure you saw that. And then under review, you are in the control cost process and have been asked to attend a meeting with upper management to give a report on your project. Jerry, the project sponsor, wants you to bring the proper documents to the meeting and be ready for any questions, which is not one of the documents you will bring. So 3 of these you're going to bring to this meeting. 1 of these you're not going to bring. So you decide what that answer is. Okay, you got your answer? All right. Your answer should have been status report. Everything else is listed in PMBOK as very specifically that they are to be brought to this type of meeting. Thank you so much for watching this video and trying to prepare yourself for the formulas. That's always a challenge on the PMP test. We provide online PMP exam prep boot camps, on-site PMP exam prep boot camps, and we ask you to try to have at least 10 people normally to make it financially feasible for you. We also have new instructor-led virtual PMP exam prep boot camps that we're really having the same type of pass rate that we have on our face-to-face. So we're really excited about that. This is our Mathis group guarantee for the face-to-face boot camps or the live virtual. You'll notice that the Mathis group exam guarantee, in the unlikely event you do not pass the PMP exam the first time, the Mathis group will pay for your second attempt within 30 days and pay for your third attempt within 30 days of that. And so there's going to be coaching involved in this, but we will pick up the tab for the second fee and the third fee. If you do happen to fail all 3 times, you're penalized by PMI for 1 year. And so we will wait that year. You will come back to one of our boot camps for free, and we'll pay for all 3 of those exams. Now, nobody in the nation will mess with this guarantee. Nobody will touch it. specifically, if you can find a better guarantee, you need to hire them to do your PMP training, because we know nobody will touch this. Now, this only applies to our face-to-face. It does apply, though, to our virtual instructor-led, but this guarantee does not apply to our online. Even though it's the same material, we do not have that type of guarantee for that. But we do have it for the face-to-face. We do have it for the virtual instructor-led. So let me thank you so much for looking at this. If you need to contact us, here's our numbers. And so it's the Mathis Group. And so it's a woman-owned small business. We've been in business 25 years. Here's our 800 number. Here's Wanda, who is the owner of the business. And then, of course, here's our website. So thank you again for watching this. God bless you. Have a great time. Bye now.